Okay, everybody, here we are ready for our last video of the semester. The semester has kind of snuck up on us here at the end. And today our video is about how to teach integrated skills. Inevitably, what we've been doing this semester with the dialogue method has somewhat been integrated, and that we've generally been working with the four skills, right? Listening, station, writing, speaking, and reading. However, it's definitely not the most integrated approach in that we're looking at each skill separately. So this is a little bit thinking forward to next semester when you'll have the classroom all to yourself and how you can be sure to be using all four skills in each class and why that might be important. So for you to think about a little bit here before I give you the answers, why do you think it's important to integrate the four skills? How can we actually integrate the four skills in one class? Because it might sound like it might be incredibly difficult. So how can we do that? What are the implications for teaching? And what are the limitations of integrating the four skills? How are we limited as teachers? So I'll give you a second to think about that and consider how you might answer. Maybe even jot down a few things so that then you can compare it with the information I'm going to give you now. Great. So why should we integrate the four skills? Well, first and foremost, to motivate the students to learn by building in more variety into a lesson. We're always talking about variety, right? You've studied learning styles, multiple intelligences, the importance of variety in general to not be a boring teacher, if you remember from last semester. And integrating the four skills is also going to, all in of itself, provide more variety into a lesson and consider students that have strengths or weaknesses in these different skills, because we've all had students, including yourselves actually maybe, that are stronger at speaking but weaker at writing, or stronger at writing but weaker at speaking. And if we integrate all four skills, then we're giving a better opportunity to all of our students to learn. It will ensure consistency and coherence to language teaching, because this is actually one of the problems we have in TLE right now, right? Is that everything's so grammar based and reading based that our students are developing reading and grammar skills, but they're not developing speaking, listening, or writing skills, because there's this imbalance. And so in order for us to make sure that their skills move forward at the same rate, we want to try and consistently be integrating all four skills, which doesn't mean that we're not going to have an emphasis. We can still have an emphasis of our class to be one of the skills, but you'll see that it's pretty easy to use all four while still emphasizing one or two. Another reason we want to integrate the four skills is to enhance the students' all-around development of communicative competence and work at the level of realistic communication. Here's that term again, right? Real world. In the real world, we use language integrated. Right now, I'm reading the PowerPoint I have before me. I'm speaking to you in English. You are listening to me. You're writing to take notes. And language inevitably in the real world is integrated. And so in order to prepare our students for real life situations, we need to use more than one language skill. And the other thing is that we can also take advantage of our materials that we prepare for class, because our materials can be used for more than one type of activity, more than one language skill. We might have prepared a class for reading with a text, right? But we can prepare an activity to discuss that reading and involve speaking, or to discuss ahead of time before we read with predicting. And then we have speaking. Whenever we speak, listening is inevitably involved. However, if we want to assure learning and listening, then we need to give specific questions, right? Or check their understanding through listening. When we read, we can write as a response or write to answer questions. And so even though the class is focused on reading and we have a text, we can still very easily, as sub-objectives, include speaking, listening, and writing. According to Gower, if you want to look at these texts later, and this is from, no, I don't have the text there. I'll tell you in a moment which pages, but this is in Gower. Gower says that an integrated skills lesson allows for the practice of language in a way which is closer to real world, which is what I've said, right? Integrated lessons where one thing leads to the other are more satisfying and less bitty, less segregated for the learners. So one activity leads into the next and there's more flow, which is something we also talked about last year with how to be a boring teacher, that we don't want our lessons to be disconnected. If there's no flow, that's those moments where you're transitioning between activities that really don't have relationship. That's where we lose our students and have problems with classroom management. A lesson which integrates a number of skills has more variety, we said that. It gives an opportunity for a topic to be fully explored and vocabulary connected to the topic to be practiced and recycled. So when we see classes that are content-based or topic-based, so we have our class based on wild animals, for example, and I can talk about wild animals, I can write about them, I can read about them, and I can listen to discussions about them, and I can explore that topic a little more fully and be more prepared. And finally, Gower says that we should integrate skills because one context or one text can be used for another activity, and the teacher doesn't have to spend time making up something new. So you don't need to prepare 10, 20 different materials for a class. With one, you can do lots of activities. To continue on the same point, why integration? Well, because production and reception are two sides of a coin that cannot be split. I can't speak if I can't listen. I can't read if I can't write. I can't write if I can't read. If the receptive and productive skills are linked, and so inevitably we're going to use them together. Even if our end goal is productive, to prepare for that production, we need to also practice receptive. Interaction, in general, the ability to communicate means sending and receiving material. And one skill can reinforce another, like I've just said, right? We learn to speak by what we hear, and we learn to write by what we read. So that's input, which takes us back to Krashen, which you heard about in Focus and probably in linguistics as well, that the more input we have, the better our output is going to be. So we need both. So how, right? This is where we get to the how. The easiest form of integration is taking receptive to productive skills. So if I'm going to have my students do a listening, then I have them speak about, and if I have them do a writing or a reading, then I write about it. That's like the easiest way to make connections between the integrated skills. However, we can also think about a task continuity that integrates all of them. When we talk about task continuity, we are referring to the chaining of activities together to form a sequence. I'm going to show you an example here in a minute, which means that the completion of prior activities is a prerequisite for succeeding ones. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything more about that, but it's preparing a lesson that integrates one skill and then the next and then next. And I'm going to give you an example here. So here's an example. I'm going to start with a reading activity, which is a poster, which is giving information about an English club. So the students read that poster. Here's another good example of how reading doesn't have to be a large story or dialogue. They're reading a poster. The oral activity that comes after that in this task continuity in the chain is that the students make up a dialogue between the club secretary and a person who wants to join the club. So this is real input too, right? And a real dialogue. They're not just repeating the dialogue that's there. They're imagining themselves in a situation where there's a person that wants to sign up for the English club and a person that knows about the English club, this club secretary, and they create a dialogue using the information from that poster. So that oral activity, you can see that listening isn't separate here. Listening is also involved there, right? As they create that dialogue and they discuss together. The oral activity is both listening and speaking. And then following the task continuity into the next part of the chain, we have the writing activity where students complete a membership application form for the English club based on their partner's information. So the only way they can complete that is if they actually dialogue with their partner. There's no way to complete it if they don't actually talk to their partner and get their name and get their level of English, for example, and complete it. So it's not just that one task leads to the next, it's that one task actually needs the information from the last one. I cannot do this oral activity without having read, and I cannot do this writing activity without having completed the dialogue. One leads to the next. This is task continuity and integrating the skills. What are the implications for teaching? Well, that the integration of the 4 skills is concerned with realistic communication. This is our end goal, right? And this is what the programs and plans of the Ministry of Education are asking for, that by the time our students graduate, they can communicate. Communication is the goal. So clearly grammar is not the best way to get there by itself. What are some of the limitations of integrating the 4 skills? Well, it's necessary for teachers to maintain an appropriate balance between integration and separation, because there are going to be times where we need to give a little bit more of a focus on one skill. So it's not that every day we have to use all 4 skills, but that in general, if we look at our unit, we've balanced out and seen all of the skills. Sometimes segregation and a focus on a specific skill is going to be necessary. Another limitation is that it can be demanding of the teacher to plan something more integrated, because the textbook doesn't necessarily integrate. So you have to be more flexible with your use of the textbook. It can also be time consuming, requiring a lot of preparation, but this is what you guys know about any good class, right? The more integrated my class, the more student-centered my class, the more constructive my class, constructivist, it's going to take a little bit more preparation, right? Well, here we make a connection with what we've been seeing the rest of the semester with our language skills and sub-skills. To be completely effective in a language, we need to be competent in the skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking, as well as in thinking about language. So this is where we get back to this importance of realistic communication, and our students can use all 4 skills together. Plus, they need to be able to pronounce well, speak grammatically acceptable, and use vocabulary appropriately. So this is where an emphasis on a specific part of language might be okay at times during my unit, but it can't be my entire unit. A few quotations from some authors regarding these integrated skills. Littlewood from 2001 says, the learner must develop skills and strategies for using language to communicate meanings as effectively as possible. Lucatoni in 2002 says, language skills are integrated, they cooperate with each other. And Harmer, one of our favorites, right? It says language users employ a combination of skills at the same time. We have to be able to use them together. If I can speak like a monologue, but I'm not able to participate in a conversation, understand someone else and respond, then I'm not doing my job as a teacher, if that's what I've achieved with my students. That's why oral presentations, they're not bad. We're focusing on pronunciation and then preparing their language, but they can't be the only speaking that we do because it doesn't involve any listening. And most speaking involves 2 people. Most of it's not like what I'm doing right now where I just talk to myself. Okay, here's an activity for you. Take a second. I want you to go ahead and fill in the blanks here with these words that are a little bit of a review of what we saw. So I'll give you a minute. It says confidence and independence need to be built and developed in using inner language in real situations. Fill in the blank. You can go ahead and write down the answer maybe on your paper next to you so you can check it here in a second. While language and grammar are important, communicative should be our, and of course, approach to language, teaching, and learning will find room for focusing on specific areas of where necessary. So let's go ahead and check. The first one says confidence and independence need to be built and developed in using language in real communicative situations, right? If that's what you put, then you have it right. While language and grammar are important, communicative confidence should be our goal. And of course, an integrated approach to language, teaching, and learning will find room for focusing on specific areas of, the only answer left, language where necessary. It's kind of the summary of what we've been seeing in this lesson. So finally, as a conclusion, the teaching of integrated skills becomes effective with communicative teaching methods. These are activities based and often done in group work. Oops, sorry about that. Next semester, not next semester. No, and in Focus, you were seeing a little bit about task-based learning, content-based learning, theme-based learning. All of those are approaches that also integrate skills as students are focused on doing a task and they have to use their language in order to complete it. This interactive mode proved to be a fruitful experience in obtaining positive response and participation from all students. So students also enjoy it more when these language skills are integrated and there's a more realistic communicative environment. All right, in class on Wednesday, we'll be practicing this, and this will be our last official class in terms of new content for the semester, because then after that, all we have left is reviewing our portfolios, our final research projects, and kind of wrapping up the semester. See you.